when you heard movement, when you heard somebody that was close to you, you would use this device. You click it once, and so you knew that was friendly forces because there's no goddamn way any Germans were going to be walking around with a toy in their pocket. I built this thing from the bottom, they tore it down, I rebuilt it. I give myself a task, you can bet your ass I fulfill it. Yeah, man, I'm talking about Willis, one of the realest. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Then John wouldn't be mad at me because I'm playing with this.
Could we do this as though we're facing off and have the mic in the middle? Don't they do that for boxing or something?
You need to do that? You need one drop-down mic that you guys look at?
Yeah.
Hey, I believe that before this is over, you're going to have to take that clicker away from him.
I don't want any confliction. This is my deconfliction device. What's your plan? Hey, are you on my team?
So you have to
explain to him how it works.
Wait, you're going to introduce yourself? What are we
doing? Hey, what's going on? This is the Pulling the Thread podcast with John and Scully. Let me give you a little music. You can just use a fox whistle.
Yep, you could just use a fox whistle.
40-mile whistle, 40 mile an hour.
40 mile an hour wind whistle. You could use that, yeah. You can pretty much use anything for deconfliction. You just have to understand that when you're deconflicting...
John Wayne.
You're also telling everybody...
Guacamole chips.
There.
Yeah.
Right?
So what's your other option? Hey. You like that better than the...
What's going on?
But at distance...
Yeah, I mean, that's
you see movement in the woods rather than throw some tracers at them. Like so, you give them the option to shoot at you first.
So the U.S. Airborne, so 101st and the 82nd, and I believe there was another one back then. I'm probably wrong about this, but they jumped in the night prior into Normandy, and they needed to be able to deconflict because they knew.
So I heard Fat Electrician, I think, talk about this.
Yeah. They knew they were going to be scattered all over fucking hell and gone. Back then, they used to talk about an enormous attrition rate. They were throwing numbers around like 90% of the guys would be fucking killed due to parachute malfunctions or falling in the swamp or all kinds of crazy shit, right? And so they knew everybody would be scattered all over the fucking place, and you needed a way to link back up.
Were those real numbers, like 90% were going to die
no, I mean,
from jump-related accidents?
I don't think any of those numbers ever came to fruition, even though they did have a lot of guys.
Was that their briefing? Hey,
yeah, 90%
of you motherfuckers are going to die before
and
contact.
There were certain groups, not large groups, but companies that did have 90% casualties that were fucked up pretty bad because you have a lot of problems when you're in an airborne element, especially when you don't control the sky and you don't control ground.
Especially, and that completely changes when they're trying to kill you in the air.
True, and that's the issue is you have planes that are thrown off course. You have planes that put their jumpers out prematurely. You have all kinds of problems. So what that does is that scatters fucking troops all over the place. From a tactical perspective, like from generals moving the pieces around on the ground, that's a terrible thing. Because what you really want is intact units on the ground so you can maneuver those intact units against whatever your target is, right? But from an enemy's perspective, it's actually worse to have these guys scattered all over the place because you never know what the main effort is, right? So if you've got dudes over here shooting and dudes over here shooting and you don't know where to send your reinforcements, so you're sending guys all over to try and put out these little small fires.
And usually not sending enough because you're trying to send them to multiple locations.
You're sending them multiple locations. You're not getting the right intel. Like there was all kinds of the Germans had all kinds of things going on in their head. What they thought, like Model thought that they were actually there to capture him. There was all kinds of crazy shit that was going on in the German high command. Because the fucking airborne troops were scattered all over fucking Normandy and back. And so they came up with this thing prior to departure. It's a dog clicker. And
so is that really what this was invented for? Was deconfliction? It was not meant for dogs?
It was not. This is actually a toy you could get out of fucking Cracker Jacks.
Okay.
Pre-war. This was a toy. And
who had the decoder ring? That was Cracker Jacks too? Ovaltine.
So this was a pre-war toy, and basically all it was being used for deconfliction. So if you're separated from your unit, you could click it once. You know, you're not just walking through the woods going. It was it was basically.
Yeah, I wish you guys could have seen his face.
It was basically just. It was basically so when you heard movement, when you heard somebody that was close to you, you would use this device. You would click it once, and then the appropriate response was 2 clicks back. And so you knew that was friendly forces because there's no goddamn way any Germans were going to be walking around with a toy in their pocket like this, right?
Would they now?
No, it would. I bet that the 82nd Airborne, could get away with this again. Like they could jump into anywhere and get away with it. Like I bet they could do it. They could click it off, and even if we were fighting Germany again, the Germans would be like, "God damn it, I don't have a dog clicker."
I'll bet they don't even know now at this point.
I'm sure that there's a couple of them that would be like, they would remember the old days.
No, the young up-and-comers didn't watch no black and white war movies.
Basically, that's all it was. It was for you. It was a device that enabled you to find friendly forces and deconflict that. Now, obviously, most of those guys were carrying M2 carbines and Thompson submachine guns and some M1 Garands. So if you did your click and you didn't get a response, your response was either a hand grenade or some full auto fire in that direction because you knew it was a German. And there wasn't anything they could do about it. So kind of interesting the innovation that we would use because again, airborne troops. So whatever it is, it has to be lightweight. It can't be something that is cumbersome and shit. So it worked out really good for them.
It's pretty cool. So I've been watching the Spiritus videos, and they do like videos on their gear, obviously. But there's a lot of videos on like packing lists and, urban operations and just kind of like Grantham did that series of videos. Like I saw one from Grantham the other day, and in the comments, like all those videos about surviving in the mountains. Now, we've been invaded. We've run to the mountains. Now, unfortunately, to take the country back, we're going to have to come back into urban fighting where we've been occupied, right? So we've survived for a year up in the mountains and we've, whatever. But to really kick them out, you're going to have to come back into urban environment. And he did these series of videos. He said, we're going to do at least 40 of these. And they put 5 or 6 out. And he said, the crazy shit is like dudes are commenting every day on these videos that are over a year old. And they're like, people didn't watch these. He said that they didn't get enough views to do these. And like, it's super important shit. Like everybody wants to watch the gun stuff, but this is the thing that you own the guns for. Right. And he's like, we just don't get enough fucking traction on them.
I mean, the problem is it's long form, and so it's long.
But they're fucked. Like, dude, I am so my attention span is so fucked from short form content. Yeah. But I can watch those videos all the way through.
But again, the problem is it's long form, and okay, Grantham. When you think about any of those people, Grantham, the Fat Electrician, any of those guys, their model is short form. Right, their model is short form.
Well, it is right now. But short form didn't exist when these guys started.
Their model is YouTube has always really been a platform for pushing short form content, and so their model is actually short form, and so they've brought their customers in based off of that content, and then they changed the model by going long form. You're gonna have a gap problem. I would say that Grantham, because he does do really good long form content when he's talking about urban survival or things like that. He would be better off if he just started another channel and started it over long form. And he's going to have guys from his original channel that are going to go and watch it because they're Grantham, supporters. And then he's going to have a whole different group of individuals who are going to watch it because they want the information. And so in the long run, I think it would be better. I think it would be better to start a completely different channel. Don't call it Grantham, call it fucking, Garand Seer Instructor or Garand whatever, or something else, because you're going to get a different audience. That's the beautiful thing about YouTube is there's a huge, huge audience out there. And even if you think that you have all the people that want to see your thing have seen your thing, that it's not even close. You're not even fucking close. There's a million people out there who haven't seen your thing. And so that's why I'm like, fucking rerun all the old shit. Repost it.
So for like the betterment of the United States, right?
Yeah.
Those videos are more valuable than whatever the new little fucking subcompact super duper pistol thing is. Always the Tusk Raider or whatever.
Again, but that doesn't make money.
100%.
That doesn't make money.
But you got to make the money in order to be able to do the other shit that's important.
In theory. I mean, sometimes people do stuff important because it's important, not because it's making money.
But you can't do it without the money.
That's not true. Garantham could do it without the money. Meaning
now he could. He couldn't have in the beginning.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he's in a position now where he could actually make the content he wants to make. Now he's still gonna have to do the gun shill videos because that's what people want to see.
Are they really gun shill videos? I mean, I understand what a lot of guys do gun shill videos, right? Some companies send some bullshit out.
I'm not talking about Garantham as like selling it. I'm just saying that is the draw that brings in the audience, that creates the money that allows him to be able to buy a fucking ranch in Montana or wherever the fuck.
Does he have a ranch in Montana?
Yeah, he does.
Did you see the video they did on the M79?
Yeah.
That was fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. I
can
mean,
see, all I thought was that's what you should be doing.
Again, he's created the audience necessary for him to be able to do that shit, right? Like he's a fucking M79 grenade launcher is $4,000.
Right, but our guys got to have a fucking M79, right?
Maybe.
You have a Scud. You have a Scud missile.
Okay. Yeah, he does. He does. I guarantee. Because when I mentioned M60, he said he has 6 of them. So.
Because he was doing all the artillery for the TV show.
For everybody. He probably doesn't have it anymore because that was a while ago. But he had the actual the Tiger tank that they used in Saving Private Ryan.
But we could safely do M79 stuff out at the range out there.
Oh yeah, we could do it.
No problem.
No problem. The reality is
do it out at your place.
We could do it if we're talking Orange Death. We could do it at
the other stuff.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
On 600 acres, you could do that.
No, I don't know because the problem is there's a lot of technical things that happen. There's a lot of behind the scenes. It's not like having an ambulance around. There's a EOD issue. There's all kinds of shit that you would have to fire HEDP, because if you have a dud,
then you just shoot it with a 50 cal.
You can't just leave it out there.
No, you just blow it in place.
There's a lot of technical things that would go into shooting it, which again, it could be done. You have those guys in Texas that create all kinds of fucking destructive devices all the time. And
who's that?
I can't think of the name of them. I watch them all the time. It's 2 dudes in Texas, and they just
there's a YouTube channel.
They make all kinds of crazy shit.
There's a YouTube channel out there right now showing how to make all kinds of incendiaries and homemade devices and stuff. Uh-huh. And I want to watch them, but I feel like somebody's going to knock on my door if I watch the videos, because that's been happening. People, the feds went through and got all the data off of some YouTube channel and then fucking went and rounded up a bunch, or didn't round up, but knocked and talked on a bunch of people's doors who specifically watched this set of videos. And I just feel like it's a trap.
I don't think it's okay.
There's a channel.
We have a technology. We have a technology issue. It's not I don't think it's a trap in the sense. I don't think it's a trap in the sense of the creators who are putting out that content.
Correct.
Are creating a trap, but the problem is technology in itself is the trap, in the sense that it's always there. And so, let's say I do a video about I don't know, how to make an improvised Claymore mine, right? And I put it out on YouTube. It's not that in itself isn't the trap until you get some fucking federal employee who's sitting at his desk going, I don't know what I'm going to do today. oh, hey, look, look. Oh, here's a crazy ass video on how to make a Claymore mine. Let's round up everybody who watched the video. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's again, I go back to the eye of Sauron. It's not a problem until the eye is on you.
There's a before I get any further down the road from this. So I've been watching those Spiritus videos, and I don't know anybody at Spiritus. I feel like I probably had some internet bullshit years and years ago with them or something. So there's probably some bad blood or something there. But if anybody knows anybody at Spiritus, number one, we want to be friendly with them, and number two, tell them that they should have an Amazon affiliate link, because I've bought like $18,000 worth of shit off Amazon, off of what I think his name's Adam, is one of the owners of the company. Adam, I know you make fun of people that he's like, yeah, motherfuckers just go buy all the shit we say, but you should know why you buy the shit we say. And I bought most of your shopping list, and if you had an Amazon affiliate link, you could have, at least made a percentage off of all that money that I've spent. So,
yeah, the reality is if you have a show and you're talking about particular pieces of kit, why not have
but
a link?
I get it. I mean, we put up videos right now.
Why not have a link?
I've got 50 something videos right now on how to build our shit, and I don't even have them embedded on our website.
But
like, we talk all the time. Like this should be in this podcast. I should have an Amazon link to this for our affiliate link.
Right.
I guarantee you that I'm not going to fucking get it in there.
Well, I look at it from a different perspective. This is going to sound bad, Brandel. You're kind of running on a ham shoe. You're kind of running on like a
shoestring budget.
A shoestring budget, in the sense of, I guarantee you, Spiritus has at least, I bet they have at least 5 guys who are working behind the scenes to make it all work.
And you never know.
You make it all work.
You don't ever know.
Because again, like, if you're talking about that, right? If you're talking about we're gonna do stuff where we're gonna have Amazon code and all that, there should be somebody who's just fucking responsible for making that happen.
You know what we need?
What?
We need somebody that is interested enough in the conversation we have.
Okay.
That we give access to because the videos are loaded in a week, 2, 3 weeks ahead, sometimes even 4 weeks. We need to give pre-access to somebody that just listens and takes notes and goes, hey, at this topic, we need a link to this thing. And then we just give them access and they fucking put that shit in there.
Yeah.
That's what
But
we
again,
need. We need
the dude.
Reed Spencer, you need to quit your job and
Just, hey,
do that shit.
Reed, all you need to do is go to half the shooting classes you go to.
Does he go to shooting classes?
I think so. Is it Reed? Somebody hits me up, and I think it's... No, maybe it's not Spencer.
So I got a kid working for me named Isaac,
Uh-huh.
and then I have a customer named Isaac. And they're right there when I go to send private messages all the time. So I'm at a restaurant last night, and I go, and I message, I think I'm messaging my Isaac in the building. I'm like, bro, super hot little chick works here at this restaurant. You should come in here and meet her. And what I said was, hey, super hot chick at Oaklawn. Well, the other Isaac's like, roger that. The flamingo walks in a straight line. You are cleared hot. Danger close. And I'm like, that's weird. I don't really expect that, but that's okay. I'll go along with this. So I look up the video from Radio Free America from Red Dawn. For all you freedom fighters, John has a long mustache. The chairs, and I send it to him, and that's it. And I'm like, and it's like eating at me. I go, that's weird that the kid didn't say what's her name or something, And then I look, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm talking to the wrong motherfucker. This has happened like a dozen times. You would think I would know by now. But it was funny with it.
Yeah, at least he was funny with it.
He was.
Good technology.
Yeah, he was. Where were we?
I don't know. We were deconflicting. I have a deconfliction, not a deconfliction story, but so you when you're meeting host nation assets and shit, when you're supposed to do bona fides, right? They tell you tell them something, and they tell you it back, and you got the right guys. And we were doing it was me and Stevenson, who is now a fucking air marshal. He's probably what's hiring an air marshal? Air admiral now. He's been doing it for so long. It's 3:30 in the morning, and we have to link up with host nation. And it was combination of 3.
Was that SOTG mission?
This was at sniper school. and it was a combination of 3, and we didn't know this, but like we're watching this target site. We're watching this target site that we're supposed to be watching, and motherfucking Stevenson like, they got midgets. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, there's midgets running around down on the target site. I'm like, midgets? They didn't get no damn midgets. And I'm looking, and the place we were supposed to link up was a graveyard. And I'm like,
on base? Where is this?
it's not on base. I don't think we were on base when we linked up at the graveyard.
With midgets.
And so we're like, we're looking, and I'm like, God damn, he's got midgets. There's these fucking midgets running around in camis. And these midgets are running around in camis. So we have to go down to the graveyard and link up with the guy. And Stevenson I sit with all the kit, and Stevenson goes and does the link up. And I hear, hey, I get the fucking guy's like, I got 2 balls in my pocket. Again, it was a combination of 3, so the answer would have been like, I got 1 ball in my pocket or something like that. And Stevenson's like, is that a trick question? And it was actually, there was no midgets. It was Neil Morrison had dragged his fucking kids out there. And so his kids are running around in camis doing link-ups with fucking all the Scout Sniper teams. And shit, it was just funny. But you never know what's going to happen. Because, again, there's the point when you are making you're making your link up.
What happens when you link up with the wrong motherfuckers?
But that's the issue, okay? There's a point where you make the link up where it almost doesn't matter. Now, the bona fides are more for... The bona fides are less... How do I say that? The bona fides are more for to ensure that... If I have to link up with you, right? I'm going to link up with you. The bona fides are more to ensure that you haven't been compromised or you haven't been killed and replaced, right? So as long as we can have that conversation. Now, the problem with that is there's a lot of ways to get that information, right? Especially if they're killing and replacing. They're not going to, if they're at, the truth of the matter is if they're at the designated link-up point at the designated link-up time, they've already got way too fucking much information, right? So it's one of those things where, if you're a fucking French resistant fighter and you're in the woods and you have to link up with the American and I show up with my fucking helmet cocked to the side,
right?
And I'm like, is that a trick question? You're going to be like, all right, fucking stupid Americans. Come on, let's go.
You can
go
also
blow up a railroad bridge or some train tracks.
You'll also use challenge questions for, like, you might be coming back. There's a dude with a gun behind you. You don't know. It's just you give an answer, but it's not the correct answer, right? So we are on more alert. Also,
one of the things that's kind of the, so during the Battle of Bulge, Germans were infiltrating. They had American-speaking Germans and they were infiltrating in and doing some stuff. They were changing fucking signposts and shit. There wasn't enough of them. The amount of infiltrators that they were supposed to have didn't really work out to what they thought they were going to have, and it turned into a soup sandwich for the Germans, really. And so the Americans, because of the infiltrations, the Americans started using challenge and passwords that only an American would know, right? So you'd be like, who's the pitcher for the fucking New York Yankees? And the problem with that is yes, a lot of people at that time period would know that. But then there was also a lot of people that wouldn't know that. Yeah, so you're creating this challenge that doesn't really exist. Meaning, normally every 24 hours we change the challenge and password, right? So you would have to know the challenge and password when you're coming into friendly lines. If I know the challenge and password, and then you hit me with fucking, what's Walt Disney's middle name? I'm like, what the fuck? Walt Disney? That's not even the challenge. That's not. It created a lot of fucking a lot of hate.
I wonder how many, like, during Cold War shit, when you had spy versus spy and they'd meet on the bus stop or the park bench, facing opposite directions, and one guy would say something. I wonder how many times they sat down with the wrong spy. Like, oh, that guy looks like my guy, and you sat down, and that was a total different operation that was compartmentalized. I wonder how many times those
Right?
contacts happened.
It probably didn't happen as probably didn't happen like you would think.
You don't because you
most
don't
of
like
those-
you don't even see men anymore with like newspaper don't exist. Like I wonder how they do it now.
But most of those connections are cultivated, so they already know who they are, right? They already know. I already know, you know, we have already established a relationship that has nothing to do with spy because I want information that I want to know how you make the patrol rig, right? I want to know how SOE makes the patrol rig. So me and Sky are buddies on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take something. I'm going to use a catalyst in order to get him to be like, what do you want? You want the fucking plans for the fucking patrol rig? Okay, I'll give you the plans for patrol rig because we've already established it. Or, you know, the common thing is usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to groom you to the point where I know what your weaknesses are, you know, who you owe money to. Maybe you like midgets, and then I'm going to use that against you in order to get the information I need. So a lot of times, especially the guys that were giving American secrets away, they were doing it just to do it. Like they were just doing it because they thought it was exciting. They weren't.
Right.
The Russians weren't paying him fucking shit.
And and like pussy will get most fucking almost anything.
Well, that's
they want
the
for
yeah. That's
90%.
The honey trap is the honey trap. Marines always get caught with the honey trap.
Weird.
But I mean, you're only going to get so much. The reality is, you're only going to get so much. I mean,
You'd catch me with like bear claws.
the other bear claws. It's like all the
Donuts, good donuts.
The good donuts. What do you want? Oh yeah, here you go.
Somebody asked on one of the lives the other night about copying some product. I'm like, why don't you just buy one? Buy one. Cut it apart. Fucking trace patterns of it. And then somebody else goes, buy two. I'm like, yeah, actually, that's even better. Buy two, because once you cut it apart, you're not sure how it's supposed to fucking go. Just buy two of them. Like, people used to ask all the time, like, will you ship overseas? I'm like, yeah. And guys were like, why are you shipping that overseas? They're just going to copy it. I go, they're going to buy it anyways. They might as well buy it from me.
Right.
At full price. We know they're going to copy it. At least we got the extra 30% off of it.
Right. And then the other.
And usually when they copy our shit,
I don't think I mean,
they make a much lesser version of it because they're like, fuck, we don't have to make it as far
'cause you
through
were-
as he does.
I mean, the reality is when you think about it, when you think about especially your products, I'm surprised there's not a fucking like a SOE factory in China, because you were
Well,
sending,
there is a dude.
the reality is, if you think about like the 90s, you were sending thousands of fucking pieces of kit to Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and that's all fucking China.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think what happens is, relatively what happens is when something's copied in China, like when the Chinese people copy it, it's not as good.
Yeah, they downgrade it.
It's not as good for whatever reason. It's not as good. And so even if you're Chinese or you live in Hong Kong, you're like, yeah, that fucking thing is $200 cheaper, but it's not the real thing, right? So you want to buy the real thing.
I'm in some gear groups, and every now and then somebody will post SOE this or whatever. And by the time I've seen it, there's 10 other guys have commented on it, and they're like, and the guy will post special operations equipment, patrol vest or whatever. And guys are like, that's not SOE. And he's like, but it's the same thing. We just made it here, wherever the fuck he's at. And I'm like, that is not made by my company. I didn't touch that product. That is not SOE. It might look like SOE, but it's not fucking anything like SOE. And then he fucking kind of like, it goes away and that kind of squashes it. But you do see some shit out there that looks, at first glance, I'll be going through and I'll look at it and I'm like, something, like you just know something's not right with it. And I get tagged into a lot of that shit too. Guys buy stuff or they're about to buy stuff and there's not a label or something, and I'll look at it and go, yeah, I made that fucking thing. 100% I know I made that. And then I'll look at it and go, No, that's fucking pretty close, but we never used that
Yeah.
material right there or something about it, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting that you would think that the Chinese could kill a market by flooding whatever it is they're making, because like that's the same thing with Strider. Strider had a factory in fucking China that dude fucking, I don't know, I can't remember who the customer was, but the customer was in China, and he literally was like, I know he had to do it on the sneak, took these pictures in this fucking factory, and it was tri-walls that were full of fucking Striders.
Just fucking loose,
Just Striders.
piled
Full-
up, waiting
yeah.
to go in containers.
Whatever they were getting ready to do, and he's like, man, they're fucking making the fuck out of these things. And usually, because I when I was there, when I was still working there, I'd like to buy the fakes. Like I would get on there and be like, that is fucking terrible. It'd be like $19, and I would buy it. And I got a pretty good collection of Strider fakes, and most of them don't look anything like a Strider, right?
But some of them,
we had and I don't know what happened to it. I think Josh might have it.
it's like when most places copy, like Pakistan or somewhere, right? I get hit up it's weird. Pakistan, Turkey, all these places making tactical. We make your tactical gear. Here's our shit, right? And you look at it and you're like, it's like when we bought that translation software. I paid $6,000 for some Japanese to English translation software, and it would translate. You could kind of get the idea, but it couldn't say handgun. It would say hand cancer, and there was just weird shit. And it's like when they tried to make nylon tactical gear in other countries. It's like the translation software is messed up. Yeah, it's a chest rig. It's got some shoulder straps, but there's just something completely fucking wrong with it.
Yeah, we had a detective in New York. It wasn't New York City.
He was a customs guy.
Customs guy in Philadelphia, I think. Anyways, and they confiscated a Strider, and he's like, I wanted to give you this because I know it's a fake because of where we got it from.
They
do you-
busted a bunch of like
Yeah,
Louis Vuitton shit
yeah,
and
he
stuff.
was like, what do you think? And I looked at it and I was like, no, this is a real Strider, because he was like, we took it off the guy who was running the ring, right? And I go, no, this is legit. And he's like, nope, it's not real, man. He goes, I know it's a fake because of where we got this. And so I showed it to Steve, and Steve was like, it looks real. And then
Have Chris take it apart.
yeah, I gave it to Chris, and I'm like, hey, here. And I didn't tell him it was fake. I basically said, hey, the customer said there's something wrong with it. Just take it apart and figure out what's wrong with it. And so he took it apart, and he had it for like an hour. Christopher had it for like an hour, and then he was like, he comes to me and he goes, I know what's wrong with it. And I'm like, what's wrong with it? He's like, it's not real. We didn't make it. And I'm like, how do you know we didn't make it? And it was just one part. There was just one part in there. It was how they screwed it together. They used a ring inside to screw it to. And so he's like, yeah, we don't do that. And I'm like, well, you're right. It's a fucking fake. It's not real. I don't know what happened to that fake, because that was a really good one. It was at SMF, I think. That was a really good one. I should have kept it, but I think Josh kept it.
I think for that market, most of those people buying those fake Striders, in other countries, they don't even know what Strider is, probably.
Maybe because maybe, but I bet they do to a certain extent, because like the
crazy shit is if you're gonna build a knife, a fake, let's say a fake S&G or SMF, and let's say they're gonna hit the market at $200, they could build a real one.
Yeah, but what they're hoping for is that what they're hoping for with that market is, so okay, it's like this.
Like, why not just make it
Because
real? I mean, they might not be able to source the exact same metal, maybe, or
let's put it this way: how much does a brand new Ferrari cost?
I mean, it depends.
100 grand, 200 grand.
Okay, let's say that.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
go with
let's
that
say
now.
a brand new Ferrari costs 100 grand.
It's more. It's a lot more than that.
Probably, I'm sure it is. But let's say it's 100 grand. If I can make a copy, so only a certain amount of people are going to be able to buy Ferraris, right? There's only a certain amount of people that are going to throw out that money to buy the Ferrari. But if I could make a copy of the Ferrari that's pretty close, even if it's just pretty close in looks, and sell it for $25,000, there's a shit ton more people that are going to buy the fake Ferrari because it looks like it's like when you go to New York City and you see all the fucking fake Louis Vuitton and Prada bags.
Well, I was just going to talk about that in a second.
Those things are on the street because
I was just going to say something
people
about
are
that.
buying them.
So your Louis Vuitton, if you get on Marketplace. So if you go back 10 years, they were cracking down on all the fake Louis and shit, right? You could find it like it was out there on Poshmark and shit. You just find somebody, but those sellers would disappear very quickly because we were buying vintage Louis Vuitton. We would cut it apart. And every now and then you'd see a piece at a big antique show, but they had like antique and flea market kind of shit. So I would always pick those up. And sometimes there was question like, is this real? Is this not? Well, this hardware's complete shit. This is a fake, right? So you saw them, they were still getting into the country and they were around places. But the days of going to a store on the corner where it's all fake Louis, like there was a shop over here in Waverly, it flooded out, but they always had fake handbags in there.
Oh, and that was the Chinese restaurant.
Was it the Chinese place?
In the front window.
And in the front window, they had all these fake fucking bags. They started cracking down on that shit. Like the local PDs and shit, they would start shutting that down. It's rampant right now. There's fake Louis everywhere. Now, most people during COVID, you couldn't get into a Louis Vuitton or a Tiffany store. I wouldn't go into them because they were requiring masks. I never bought anything ever from them after that because of the mask bullshit they were doing. I had a private shopper that would fucking hit me up. Like, they were really good about it. I bought stuff for Amanda because they would remind me, hey, Valentine's Day is coming up.
Yeah, I remember,
we know you like black and red. Like, I bought a lot of that shit because they put forth the effort to send me a text message. And they would send me, like, I only bought, like, runway collection. There was only, like, 100 pieces made in the entirety of the company. So, you know, I bought some neat shit, and Amanda loved it, and it wasn't, and I never remembered those dates.
Do you think that's true?
What? That there's only 100 made?
Yeah. Do you think it was true, or do you think that they...
It could be perception. Like, I know that...
Because you know that you know the church was selling pieces of the cross for hundreds of years after the...
I see what you're saying,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, the Spear of Destiny and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But I've never run into anybody else
that has it
with it, right? Where you think Louis Vuitton, you think that ugly-ass brown with the tan LVs or the gold LVs all over it, right? Every hood rat in the world has one of those things. And a lot of the hood rats have the real ones because they spent their entirety of their $1,400 to buy this thing. There's a YouTube channel that's really good. I can't remember his name, but all he does is luxury goods. And he did a breakdown on, I think their big one's called the carry-all or something. And he's like, this isn't even real leather. This is linoleum. It's literally, I think he said it's waxed canvas. And he said, this bag costs $14. And they go over and like, here is the factory that makes these things. It's all slave labor and shit. Like, he broke it all down. Like, they went on site. This is what it costs. And you got this fucking $1,100 to $1,400 bag that's really ugly if you think about it. They're just buying it because of the status of having a Louis Vuitton bag. And then you see fucking the trailer park, crackhead. She's got one too. And she paid, $14, $15. Well, but the fakes still go for, a couple $100 or so. Yeah. But we were buying them just to cut them up and, do hybrids of stuff.
Right.
And guys would lose their shit. And even when they wouldn't.
What was the backpack? Was that a Louis Vuitton that you took to Blade Show?
No, we hijacked that. We made that.
No, I know.
Yes,
I know
it was
you
branded
made it.
Louis Vuitton.
It was Louis Vuitton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I never sold it. Like,
you still have it?
I have it. I didn't want it like every show.
Those motherfuckers, those guys were going bananas over that bag.
Yeah, the last offer I turned down was $4,500, and it's a mini pack. And
I remember he was either Chinese or Japanese that came back like fucking 9 times with offers. Super good customer, really good client. If I was ever gonna part with that bag, I would give that to him. I wouldn't charge him for it. He's just like there's a dude running around that sends me photos all the time. Anytime an SOE Strider goes up secondary market, he rescues it. Yeah. Like, he buys it. He has. I wish I could rescue things. He's got like 5-6 consecutive serial numbers because dudes bought those things
and then they sold them for way more.
Right.
And they held on to them, and then they get, in a bind, or they're going to, a place in a position in life where they can buy a house or something. So they start liquidating a lot of that shit. And that's one of those things that's held its value. So
it's rare.
Yeah, this guy buys them. We have a friend who's a prince in Saudi Arabia. He buys a lot of that stuff. So, we're blessed and that helps keep that market in there, that people want that stuff, because there was only, 25 of each of those runs,
right.
and they're all vastly different. So that's pretty cool. But that Louis Vuitton stuff, man, what I was going to say was there seems to be zero enforcement of that right now. I mean, they might catch containers coming in, and it might just be so rampant they're like, oh, fuck it. Or maybe they're busy with real crime or something.
No, they're not busy with
But it's
crime.
fucking, they're just like, so you've seen the Aurora, Colorado thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I keep hearing the number 32. 32 Venezuelan gang members break in and shoot up this place. There's some man on the ground YouTube channels that have gone. I watched one yesterday morning. He went there and spoke to people in Spanish and shit. And a lot of the people in Spanish said, no, it's not real, no big deal. Then he talked to some other people, white stoner dude. He's like, oh yeah, it's fucking definitely. He's like, and they're like, do you feel threatened? He's like, no, not in the daylight, but you definitely don't want to go out in the dark. You hear gunshots all the time when the sun goes down. And then he found the red door where it was, and there's 2x4s fucking holding that wall together, and there's fucking bullet holes and shit. And he's like, yeah, this is a real thing. Well, 2 days ago it pops up that a Venezuelan gang, number 32, brandishing weapons in the courtyard, takes over this whole apartment complex in Chicago. It's just weird that 32 was the same number on both locations. There's some footage of it a little bit. There's a bunch of 911 calls of it. And then you get the black dudes come out and they're like, hey, motherfucker, don't start no shit, won't be no shit. But you ain't going to do like you do in Colorado. You come over here, we got switches and shit, and we will handle ours. So, and then you start hearing the Hells Angels are riding, and you start seeing all these motorcycle rally pictures and shit. The Hells Angels aren't going to ride from across the United States to go to fucking Colorado. I guarantee there's a Hells Angel chapter there that would have handled that shit, and you wouldn't have heard about it until it was already done if they were doing anything.
The interesting thing is how propaganda the news is.
And why does the news keep saying HA? I thought the government owns Hells Angel. They can't use it anymore.
Anyways, but propaganda, when you're part of the propaganda machine and you can recognize
these motherfuckers they just read the issued speech.
Well, no, I think it's deliberate propaganda because we can go back to 90 when we went to LA. We were talking about Los Angeles.
You were up.
Part of the propaganda. Yeah, we're part of the propaganda machine, in the sense of so even when you think about the news now and how much bullshit that they put out that's not true, right? Even back in the 90s, they were doing it. So we go up to LA and we do the riots, right? We're there for 3 weeks, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. Marine Corps packs up and goes home. Like, we completely go home. Well, the day we left, the Bloods and the Crips came out and they were like, well, the reason why the Marine Corps left is because the Bloods and the Crips came together and said, hey, we're losing too much fucking money. We need to stop this bullshit. And so they basically told everybody, no more shit. Calm the fuck down.
All the hood rats. You've robbed everything you're going to rob.
We're done because we're losing too much money. And so they actually went on the news and did like a fucking handshake and everything. And
I remember seeing it.
And the Marine Corps was like, okay, Marines home. So we go home. We go back to Pendleton. Well, the day we go back to Pendleton,
shenanigans.
No shenanigans, but the Bloods and the Crips came out and said, let's burn this motherfucker down again. So they came out after we left. They came out and said, let's burn this motherfucker down again. And
they replayed the news.
And then the news is like, oh shit, the Bloods and Crips are getting ready to go to war again. So the Marine Corps is gearing up to send the Marine Corps up to Los Angeles. And they literally showed tapes. They literally showed video of guys getting ready to go into
Panama.
No, not Panama. Grenada.
Heartbreak Ridge, yeah.
Yeah, they literally showed video. The video they showed was dudes getting ready to go into Grenada. I mean, the old flak jackets, the steel helmets, and all that shit. And I'm like, I'm watching that and I'm like, holy shit. They just used propaganda against the citizens of Los Angeles because none of it was real, right? And I don't even think the reality after the fucking shenanigans of our first little tour up there, I don't believe that the Commandant of the Marine Corps would have, like, if they would have been like, please come back, I think the Marine Corps would have been like, nah, we're not coming back. I mean, they had to fire that battalion commander. They had all kinds of crazy shit going on in Los Angeles. So.
Why'd they have to fire the battalion commander?
Because a shit ton of ammunition disappeared.
What does that mean?
That means that, you know, you have a group of
Guys took it home, or somebody stole it, or it got expended?
It was probably a little bit of both.
More shooting than was reported?
It was probably a little bit of both, but basically what was happening was former gang members were handing stuff out of the back of the truck to their boys. So the battalion commander got launched, and then our battalion commander got stolen to go to that battalion, and then we got a fucking God. It's just amazing how I mean, you know what? We had a DEI, you know, when I think about it, we had a DEI hire back then. Like, we got a battalion commander who could not speak English.
What?
Literally could not speak English. We had our battalion commander was fucking awesome. And they fired the battalion commander that took everybody up to Los Angeles, and then moved our battalion commander over because he was the senior guy. And then they brought this 4-foot like little tiny Mexican colonel, and you know, again, he might have been the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he couldn't speak English. Like, we would literally have battalion formations where he would spend most of it speaking in Spanish and then end it with "Good day, Marines," and walk away. And you'd be like, what the fuck did he just say? What are we doing? Anybody?
How is that even possible?
Because sometimes you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to make sure you got the guys in the position. It's, you know, it's kind of common, actually.
Say the real thing. Like, how did he fucking get there?
That's what I'm saying. It's probably a fucking DEI hire or something.
They literally just couldn't get anybody else to fill the position. They couldn't get anybody to
fill that position, yeah.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah. Which, it is wild, especially when you think about the battalion that it was, because 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for the leadership for guys to fight to get to that battalion, because that battalion was at that time was kind of the pinnacle of 1st Marines. And so if you wanted to be promoted, you had to go to fucking 19. And I'm like, all our platoon commanders, all our fucking company commanders were all fucking ring knockers. They were all Annapolis grads. They were all, you know, we had to, like, I had a goddamn company commander who was a fucking Force Recon ninja. Only because he wanted to be a battalion commander one day. Right? It's just, it was pretty interesting. That battalion, like, I will say, growing up in the Marine Corps, you know, as a young kid, I was fucking spoiled with that battalion, because that battalion was fucking, it was always on point.
So most of the guys we knew that were ninjas, they were pissed off when they got promoted out of operation, right? Had to go and do some other thing or take over this other unit, and they would fucking kick and scream trying to stay doing the mission. Whereas you're saying there was dudes that went and did the mission just to get the promotion?
No. I am sure that Captain Houck, it was Captain Houck at the time. I'll bet he had to have made fucking, I'll have to look him up. Anyways, at the time, I am sure that he wanted, that when he went through Force Recon, you know, when he did his tour down at Force Recon, and because I think he did it as lieutenant, when he did his tour down at Force Recon and got all fucking qualled out, that's what he wanted to do, right? That's what he wanted to do. But outside of the enlisted world, from an officer's perspective, your career almost over if you stay in the reconnaissance community, right? You need to get out and fucking get a company command.
Yeah, and that's when they did the up or out shit, and they were putting guys out.
If you want to be a fucking, well, if you want to have a star one day, right? You need to take that path career. So he would have, because I think he did all that as a lieutenant. He would have had to have left and did his second lieutenant shit somewhere, and then once he got commissioned captain, he would have had to. I'll bet he had to have requested a company command.
So when you like, we met a bunch of guys, like not a bunch, but every year or so, we would meet new like FACs, forward air control guys, that were like F-18 pilots and shit.
Yeah.
That were now embedded with a
battalion.
reconnaissance unit or something. So
every battalion had one.
do you think that was that like a punishment, or did those guys volunteer? Like, okay, I'll get out of this fucking jet. I'm a fucking fighter pilot. I'm gonna go ahead and step out of this canopy and go do some ground shit.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to pilots about that. I had a FAC. He had a fucking very interesting career, and he would be a great guy to get on a podcast. He was the FAC for the battalion, so he was our battalion FAC, and then so he did a deployment as the battalion FAC, and then the next deployment, something happened. Something happened where he got to be H&S company commander. Totally fucking, like, not a thing, right? Totally not a thing. And he was a great company commander. I fucking really liked his ass. I mean, he was just a great company commander. Like, he was on point. And I'm in Iraq 20 years later or 15 years later, right? I'm in Iraq, and I'm walking to the fucking chow hall, boop, 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 and here comes this dude in a flight suit, and I'm like, holy shit! And he's I believe he was a lieutenant colonel, maybe a colonel at the time. And I'm like, sir, what's up? What are you doing? And he was flying Ospreys. I'm like, oh,
man,
you're flying that death machine.
When we did ship takedowns, Gosney was there, some SOTG guys were there, and he had a dude with him. I can't remember. I'm trying to think of his name. And I remember that dude had left he was at SOTG from Force Recon, I think. And he had left, and I saw him years later, and he's like, yeah, I'm an F-18 pilot now. Like, he had left that, completely became an officer, and was flying jets, and went backwards from the way that normally works, or at least the guys I encountered. And I can't remember his name. I'm like, do you like it? He's like, oh yeah, man, I love it. Like, this is so much better. But I'm just always curious about that path, like which you would rather do. And I mean, when you go do the ninja shit, like, how sustainable is that, right? You go in there as a 20-year-old kid, and you're going to go be a fucking professional, your goal is to go to the Super Bowl or whatever. Like, how long can you keep that operational tempo and those fucking, 20-mile runs and all that shit? Like, I mean, we know dudes that are 50 years old still doing it, but those are the guys we know, right? Out of how many of those 5 dudes still doing that at 50, how many thousands are already fucking tore up from it?
It's a small percentage.
Yeah.
It's a very small percentage. It's hard to keep guys at that level for that. It's a small percent. I mean, because even when you think about, like, if you think about Delta Force, right? Or CAG, or whatever the fuck they call them these days. They're fucking tiny. Like, in the big scheme of things, right?
What do you mean they're tiny?
As a group of
Got
individuals,
it,
they're
okay.
tiny. So when you think of those guys, right? They have an entire fucking army to pull from, right? They are pulling from an entire fucking military service.
Less than 1%.
And now, it's not just recent, but they can pull from all services. So you can pull from Department of Defense, and you're still fucking tiny. And the reason why they're so tiny is because to get real fucking meat eaters, they're going to operate at that level constantly, always. It's a small percentage. It's just a small percentage. The reality, when the Marine Corps says every Marine is a rifleman, it's really a lie. It's really a lie. Some are more riflemen than others.
Well, I mean, just think about your day-to-day life, right? Not in combat, not in military equipment, no load on your back, and you just fucking sustain some bullshit injury, stepping out of the truck, twist your ankle, or you slip on some wet concrete or something. And yeah, you take some time off and you heal up, and you take a week or two, and then you go back to the gym and it feels okay, but that injury is always still there a little bit, right? Yeah. Those aren't anything next to anything like the injuries those guys are getting. I mean, so yeah, you go get your shit fixed, you take a few weeks off, and then, that's always, that underlying injury is always still there.
I will say this about those group of guys, especially them versus any of the other fucking ninjas, is if you listen to any of the interviews of the dudes who've retired out of there, right, who are out on the circuit doing interviews, they all say the same thing. Every day every day was a day where they had to go 100% because they could be replaced. That's a tough life to live. Like, the reality is, that's a tough life to live, and I'll bet it's an even harder life to walk away from, right? To be at that level, and then the next day you're fucking getting Count Chocula at the fucking grocery store. That's a tough life to live, especially when you hear of the kind of freedom of movement that they do have, right? They have a freedom of movement that a regular Joe doesn't even understand. Like,
plus
like
all
I
the
can't
support that comes with it.
I can't even comprehend the freedom of movement. Like, I know I have a real good friend who sat next to a CAG Sergeant Major back in the day, and and they were talking about he was making fun. My friend was actually making fun of the movie Delta Force, right, with the motorcycles with the rockets on it. And the guy's like, oh, that's not even the. He goes, that you think that's funny, but you should see some of the shit we actually have, right? To be able to have the limitless, the
get out of jail free cards and shit.
The whole government. I mean, that again, the get out of jail free card, that comes with a lot of responsibility. The reality is, the reason why you have the capability to have a get out of jail free card is because you're operating at a level that they know that whatever you're doing is going to be above reproach. And that's why there's, a little bit of heat between certain units, because when I say, when I am the establishment, like Delta is the establishment, the reality is no matter how good all the other services can get, they established the line. They created that special operations tier, right? They are the fucking rock. They're the cornerstone of special operations. And if I establish that line and you come up here to my line, but then you start operating in a manner that is bringing question to the line, you're the fucking problem, not us. And so, it's interesting, but like you said, I don't know how they do it. I don't know what the turnover, what is the fucking, what is the turnover rate in a unit like that? I know, most guys stay for a long fucking time, but again, just like you said, you can hurt yourself just fucking stepping out of a car. Let's forget about fucking parachute jumps, scuba, all the other bullshit that they're doing out there. It'd be real easy to get injured, and then that injury would be real easy for you to fall out of.
There's probably a lot that goes
favor
to it too, right? You see that football game. You don't see the fucking warming up in the locker room before that. Yeah. You don't see the fucking practices, the fucking ice baths, the fucking, IR light therapies, the fucking massage, not to even mention the pharmaceutical supports.
Yeah, I don't know how far they go with all that and what the level is. I do know that, their thing is knowing the basics, frontwards, backwards, and outwards. And if you know the basics, if you can do the basics in your sleep, because most people can't, you're always going to be better than the next guy. And so that's why, they get more ammunition than the United States Marine Corps, because they're always training those basic levels, which is good. I mean, it's nice that we have an element that can operate at that high level. I don't know what they do. Because the Navy's the one that killed Bin Laden.
Well, I mean, if they do it right, you don't know what they do.
That's true, and that's part of that argument. Part of the argument is, Delta has always been the quiet professionals, and they have always kept their fucking mouth shut.
And if the upper echelon would shut the fuck up, people, I mean, they don't even call it CAG anymore. I mean, who knows what they're calling it now? And then you have even beyond that, the smaller individual units.
And that's kind of it. It's just it's what level you want to operate at. I mean, I can't even comprehend the intestinal fortitude required to fucking operate at that level all the time.
I mean, you've got units that roll into, cities, for instance. They know every phone that's in the city. They have a compilation of everybody. Like, they could literally go, who do I know whose phone is in this area right now? I mean, how do you think, how do you think you're parked at a fucking stoplight? You're stopped at a a 4-way stop in Las Vegas. You get a phone call and your boy's like, hey, what are you doing here? How the fuck did he know you were there? Because that software, that fucking capability that they have said, these are the people that are in town.
I mean, the reality is when we were doing those missions for SOTG back in the 90s, regular, I don't want to say regular, but regular, het teams and shit, they were doing that shit back then. They were sitting in the corner with their little gadgets listening to everybody's phone calls, right?
Sure.
And that was pre fucking cell phones.
Yeah, they used to carry 120 pounds of comm gear to do that bullshit. Imagine what they've got now.
They're still listening to
And now it's balloons, and they don't even have to be in a fucking airplane anymore.
Yeah, we had a group in Huseba. They had they were all wired compound and shit, and so it was kind of interesting that things would happen within our AO, and then after the fact they'd be like, you would get the data sheet and you'd be like, fuck, you guys knew that shit the whole time? And they're like, yeah, but we can't tell you how we know it, right? So it's pretty interesting how that shit works. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? So if you...
Well, because sooner or later you're not in that business, and when you're outside of that business, the potential is always there for them to use that against you as the political fucking wind changes.
This is true.
I mean, you're seeing that's what's happening right now. Yeah,
that's where we're at right now. You have the full force of the U.S. government trying to take down Donald Trump because he's not part of the establishment.
Well, I mean, you have a bunch of drone pilots coming out. I mean, I've probably met a dozen dudes in the last year that are like, "Yeah, I used to be a drone pilot." And when you really can speak to them about what they were doing, I don't think people have a fucking any clue what's happening out there on the battlefield that's not with an individual dude pulling his finger, pulling a trigger. I don't think they got no clue. You're starting to see pieces of it with Ukraine and stuff going on over now, guys talking about what's happening in Israel and stuff. But man, that's not even, I mean, just imagine the classified shit that's not even coming out yet.
Wait till you can meet one of the guys who's flying the balloons over the United States.
Yeah, the balloons that are over every major city. I say that all the time, and people are like, "You're so full of shit, man." Dude, those things are over 40,000 feet up there. I mean, just listen to Monkey Works. Just fucking talk about it.
And they don't even have to be used at 40,000 feet. They use reflective technology, so when you look up, you see the sky you don't see the balloon.
Well, that's the bubble.
Yeah, you see the sky you don't see the balloon.
The Sphere, wasn't there a TV show about that shit?
And if you are out there and you're thinking that's bullshit, they don't have that technology, just do a quick Google search. There's actually 3 scientific studies that they did using those balloons over Minneapolis, Chicago, and one other study. And it's published that they use these targeting balloons to identify targets on the ground and monitor cell phones and do all this. Like, there's a pretty good article, it's a pretty good story about a dude who commits a homicide. He kills some dude on a corner.
They had to let him go.
No, they didn't arrest him. They never arrested him. He killed this person on a corner, and with the balloon, they don't follow him with the balloon. The balloon's just sitting up there, guys. It's not fucking driving around and shit. With the technology they have on there, they follow him as he goes down a bunch of city blocks, walks, gets in his car, drives to his home and shit. And so, because this was a scientific study, they couldn't release any of the information to law enforcement. And they had the individual who was shot, the individual shooter, his car registration license plate, his home, exactly where his home was, and then I think they followed him for a couple days after that. And they released that shit like a year after it happened.
Did they?
But no, they can't. You can't use any of that in court because that's all classified technology.
Yeah, so they say that Stingray, everybody, it's household name almost at this point, Stingray, right? It's over
Stingray
25 years old.
Stingray's old, man.
Local PDs have Stingray. But when Stingray comes up in a court, the prosecuting attorney almost always drops the case. They never want to say how they got the data. It's like Stingray is not supposed to be spoken about in court. But when the defense brings up Stingray, is this what this was? Those fucking cases are almost always dismissed. They just fucking drop the prosecution at that point. So just imagine what they have right now.
Even now, because when you say imagine what they have right now, what you have to do is you have to use the piece of technology, whatever it is, your glasses that see into the future.
And then task people onto it.
The glasses that see in the future, and you can be like, oh, I know exactly what they're going to do on this date. And then what you have to do is you have to task people in a manner that does not give away your technology, so you're arresting them for a crime that they're committing, but
well, it's the snoop and poop warrant, right?
Uh-huh.
You can go get a warrant to break into somebody's house, to look for evidence of a crime, to get the evidence, to then get the warrant to execute the warrant. Like, it's absolutely fucking crazy.
Yeah.
They can legally just break into your shit because we think this guy might be doing something, and then get some evidence or plant some evidence.
How could that possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
How could that possibly go wrong?
See, the ATF killed another man.
Was he wearing a dog suit?
After the airport. No, there was another one.
No, he wasn't wearing a dog suit.
Why? What's the dog suit guy?
Well, no, I'm just saying, if the ATF is shooting their
Oh,
guns,
I got
usually
you.
into
I got
dogs.
you. No, this is FBI.
Yeah.
FBI and ATF fucking just smoking fools. Like, it's so commonplace right now that there's not even, like, gun tubers aren't even very much speaking about it.
I mean,
So are machine guns about to be legal?
No.
Never happened?
No, I don't think so. I think so. Okay, first off, I know there are people celebrating this, right? There are people celebrating this. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I'm saying that from somebody who would have a M250 cal if I could legally own one. If I could legally own, well, I mean, I can't afford a class 3 M250 cal. If machine guns became legal tomorrow, we would all be able to afford an M250 cal because the prices would fucking tank. Because everybody would be making machine guns. I don't like it, and the reason why I don't like it is because what it does is it's creating it's AR-15 back in the 90s was easy to attack. So when they went after assault weapons were easy to attack because most Americans didn't own any. Right? They really didn't own any. AR-15s were not prolific like they are now. So it was easy to attack those weapons and create the crime bill and get them banned because most people didn't have them, right? While machine guns are legal to own and purchase, today it's a small minority of guns, right? It's a real small minority of guns. It's really people with a lot of money.
Well, it's because they can't make any more of them.
Correct.
For
right?
civilians.
So it's a real small minority of guns, and so they just don't get out there, right? You see a machine gun, you're at a specific place.
People don't realize it's not your next door neighbor typically that owns a machine gun. It's very, very wealthy people because it's an investment vehicle that always appreciates. It always goes up. So when a person like that dies, those go in, they're in a trust already, and other people are in the trust, so they don't move, or the wife takes them and then sells them if she knows anything about them, and usually the owner will have documented that, and she'll have some idea. So they constantly go up in value because there is no more of them.
Yeah.
And then as they get destroyed as well, I mean, the number of machine guns every year decreases.
So, interesting enough, you had a case just recently that was thrown out of a federal court. The guy had a switch. From what I'm told, he had a switch on a clock.
Felon.
Was he a felon?
He was a felon. That's what this big case is about.
I don't know why he wasn't a felon in possession of a firearm.
And I don't think
Easy.
I don't think he was an upstanding citizen. I could be wrong about that. I think you've got a questionable person gets arrested with 2 machine guns. One is something, and one has a switch. Yeah. And he says he fights it under Second Amendment, and it goes to high court, and high court says he can have it.
Now the ATF can appeal that. decision, and they can go up to.
Right. I'll
I think
bet
it's the Ninth Circuit.
I would
know
suspect
if
he's
they're-
not out walking around right now.
I don't know if they're gonna. It'll be interesting because you don't. Again,
But there is a
there's
lot
some,
of this.
There's some things you don't want to go into court. But let me get back to my thing about why I don't like it. The reason why I don't like it is because it's real easy. It's real easy to hate machine guns. It's real easy to hate machine guns. It's real easy to create this fervor around a weapon system like a machine gun, right? Even though they're out there, and even though people shoot them every day in the United States and no one gets hurt, it's real easy for the libs to create this fervor about how the United States will turn into a hellscape if everybody can own a machine gun, right?
Yeah, there's been one crime committed with a registered machine gun.
It's
I believe.
real easy to create that fervor, okay? And so let's say the courts do uphold the Constitution and like you don't have any standing. Fuck off with the damn machine guns. Anybody can own a machine gun. It's real easy to create the hate and discontent based off of those machine guns, especially when gangsters are shooting machine guns every day right now because of Glock switches in Chicago and all that place. You don't hear about it now because machine guns technically in the liberal world are dead, right?
Yeah, they said China is bringing millions of switches in
because in the reality of it, how do you bring up machine guns if machine guns are already illegal and everybody's shooting them in Chicago? Like everybody has a switch on their Glock now down there. You can't. It doesn't make the argument. It's the reason why liberals are not fucking saying anything about it. It's the reason why they're not talking about machine guns because they've already regulated machine guns. Now,
how are all these guys like? Every time I scroll through shorts, I see switches. Like just when you get into a random feed, how are they committing crimes and not getting arrested for like showing the crime?
Because they're stupid. And the other thing too, though, the reality is when you think about it, when you see, because the one I just saw like 2 days ago, 3 teenage kids,
Always look the same.
3 teenage kids, they all pull their Glocks out, and they're all showing the switches in their high capacity magazines, right? Again, I'm going to use the ATF. The ATF does not have the resources or the capability to go into fucking Chicago.
Well, if they weren't going after Trump supporters.
This is true, but if they don't have it's not, the reality is, I am sure that the ATF looks at it as it's not in their best interest. The only time they're going to get involved is if a crime is committed that it can be prosecuted, meaning if local law enforcement arrests local gang member with a fucking gun that's got a switch in it, then maybe ATF will send an agent out there and be like, hey, we're going to charge this guy with felony
Well, once
possession of a
local
machine
catches
gun.
it, then feds will pick it up as an
Correct.
enhancement.
Yeah, they're not out there looking for Glock switches because literally if they were, they would know that all they have to do is go to the park and there's a dude with a fucking card table selling them bitches.
And if you're listening to this, I don't think switches should be illegal. I think every one of you should be able to have them. I think you should have whatever you want. It's what you do with it.
This is true.
You have laws that already negate murder.
But this is true, but we have a hard time. We have a real hard time in prosecuting real criminals. So we have a hard time prosecuting real criminals.
Who's we?
The United States government. We have a hard time prosecuting real criminals. It's much easier to prosecute a law-abiding citizen who has a business and is attempting to pay taxes because that guy is going to be the one that's going to fucking suffer.
Because he has something to lose.
He's got something to lose. Motherfuckers in Chicago, not to say they don't have anything to lose. They always have something to lose, but there's no gain in it for them. It's like the Border Patrol. For example, I'll use the Border Patrol's example. We're down on the fucking Silver Strand. 20 Mexicans walk by us. There's a fucking Border Patrol van parked.
Sleeping.
Just down the road. They're all sitting in that there's 2 agents sitting in that thing. Those fucking Mexicans walk right by them. We're like, what the fuck? Me and Chris go down there, doot, give them the knock. They're like, what is it? We're like, didn't you just see the fucking Mexicans walk by? They're like, they walk by every night. Hello, Border Patrol. Like, were they wearing backpacks or carrying sack lunches? We're like, they were carrying sack lunches. We're not interested. Why aren't you interested? Because if they're carrying sack lunches, they're going to work. if they were wearing backpacks and they're carrying dope, dope is how we make our money. That's the truth of it, right? The truth of it is even if you're fucking super cop and you want to go out, even if you're a super cop and you want to go out and protect the lives and citizens of the United States and fucking enforce the laws, there's going to be a point where you're going to be like, this doesn't even make sense anymore. Why am I doing this? I arrest him today. He's out tomorrow. Why did I spend all that time arresting this guy for whatever it is if the system is just going to throw him out in the street? We have a hard time allocating that justice. So
I want to see these 32 Venezuelan gang members. I can't wait to see the serial numbers on the guns. Where are they getting the guns from, right? Is that going to be another Fast and Furious? Are they going to be the same serial numbers? Like, who's giving them the guns? Maybe they got them off the street. Maybe. But probably not.
But either way, Aurora, Colorado is it's a little more restricted than most places. So
yeah, so Aurora, Colorado, another thing they said was you go to the Walmart parking lots and you have like street vendors all of a sudden they've just set up at Walmart selling produce. And when some people went to buy this produce and they push you for your card, he's like, cash. They're like, no, we don't take cash. No cash, no cash, no cash. They want to swipe your card through their card reader because they want to skim your card.
Skim your card, yeah. I mean, whatever. Our federal government has created this problem, and our federal government's not going to do anything about it.
It's a trip that, Walmart calls law enforcement. Law enforcement comes out and won't remove these motherfuckers from Walmart's parking lot. But you pull up in a camper, you're not allowed to fucking park overnight at Walmart anymore. It's just bizarre.
Well, again.
Yeah, they want this to happen. Yeah. And the whole thing with the Hell's Angels, they want that to happen. They want some clash to come in. Like, dudes on the lives are like, so we need civil war. I'm like, you're not ready for civil war. That's what the powers that be want. They want you to come with your guns to kill these so that they can say, number one, you're racist, so we can have more of a white supremacy problem, but also so they can enforce more laws against the guns.
That's why they were so upset about January 6th.
Because there was no guns.
Because they were hoping that the Democrat Party was hoping that there was going to be some gunplay.
2 years we've had people in custody for zero crime.
Yeah.
Old women. 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Speedy trial, guys.
Yeah, insurrection. Nobody shows up for a fucking insurrection, civil war, overthrow of the Capitol. They don't show up without guns.
No, not only that, the Supreme Court threw out the rule that they were using to hold those people, meaning they were actually using a bullshit rule from the Enron case to hold these people. The Supreme Court was like, that's not what it was intended for. Fuck off, you can't use it. They're still holding those people.
Yeah. It is said that U.S. air marshals are not in the air because the air marshals are all tasked to research and round up all the fucking January 6 people. They're still hitting people.
I should ask my air admiral and see if that's true.
Speaking back of the balloon thing, when you guys show up someplace, you're like, I won't take my phone. When they see movement without a phone beacon, you are a POI. They're going to send, they are very fucking, now they're zooming cameras in. They're surveying you a lot heavier if you were walking around, because nowadays everybody has a phone. So if you go into an area where there's a protest or something that has potential of an operation happening and you show up with no cellular signature, they're definitely on your ass. So just be aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Until people are become uncomfortable, it's just going to get worse and worse.
Yep.
Or more constrictive. It's just going to get more constrictive.
Well, that's what the Patriot Act was about.
Until people actually fucking get dressed, get off their couch, and go outside and be like, "Oh shit."
That won't happen until the power goes off.
I don't know. I don't know. Here's the thing about a catalyst. The thing about a catalyst is you don't know what it is. You can't. Nobody's ever predicted this. Like if 5 years before World War I had kicked off, or 2 years before World War I kicked off, if I told you that World War I was going to kick off because a fucking Archduke Ferdinand got assassinated by a motley crew of fucking rabble-rousers, you'd be like, a whole world war for that? No fucking way. Like, you don't know. Like, even when you look at our Revolutionary War, there was all kinds of shit that happened.
6 years worth.
All kinds of shit that happened pre what's the bridge? I'm sorry, guys. I completely forgot the bridge where all those patriots were killed by British soldiers. But you don't know what the catalyst is going to be, right? You don't know what it is that's going to fucking throw that fucking 10-gallon thing of gas on the. I mean, maybe this country would look a lot different right now if Trump had actually been assassinated. Maybe.
That's what they keep saying.
We don't know.
Everybody's saying
We
that.
don't know. We just don't know what it is that's going to be the thing. Like, the reality is we look like, we look like Germany in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Where free love and all that, where all the lefty ideas are prospering, and you know how that ended.
Mm-hmm. Every society's into it.
That's how it ended with Adolf Hitler. Now the question,
it didn't end with Adolf Hitler. They fucked Germany so much that the people were in such fucking a bad position that what Adolf Hitler said sounded pretty good. He was for those people.
Well, what happened was
the Treaty of Versailles.
The Weimar Republic. Well, it was post Treaty of Versailles. The Weimar Republic, and during that period, you had 20%. You had 20% of the population that was enjoying the freedoms of decadency, and 80% of the population who was not living in cities.
You mean kind of like right now?
Weren't. And you also had. I mean, think about this, where we're at right now. You also had a tremendous amount of World War I veterans who were disenfranchised with how society was going. We have.
Do you think we don't have that right now?
We have 20 years of trained professionals who are disenfranchised with the system as it right now. Now, the only difference is, I would say this.
Well, we've got them sedated and medicated.
The only difference is, I think that they're comfortable.
And they're fucked up. The VA's got them completely fucked up.
You got a certain percentage of that, but the reality is we're comfortable because, unlike the returning World War I veterans, our veterans are getting paid to stay home, right? So our veterans are getting paid to stay home. The Department of Defense gives me a check to be comfortable. It's not, it's not fucking monopoly. It's not mad money, but I'm comfortable, right? What happens if the current government crashes the economy to the point where veterans aren't getting paid anymore?
Or they simply get a mission.
They just aren't.
Will
getting
mission
paid.
override that little bit of comfort?
We don't know what the catalyst is going to be. I mean, there was somebody that was talking about, this was a while ago, that Trump would be the last president, as in Trump would be elected and he would turn himself into a dictator and he would be the last president the United States has ever had. I think they were right. Not in the Trump being a dictator, but I think they were right is in the fact that Trump was the last president. Because the reality is our current president did not get elected president. Our next president, she didn't get a single fucking vote when she ran for president.
Didn't get a single fucking thing passed when she was senator, Congress, or whatever.
She hasn't been elected to her current position. They didn't do any primaries. So
you think she's going to show up for this debate?
If Harris gets elected president of the United States,
everybody knows, even they know.
But if Harris gets elected president of the United States, she has not made it through any of the checks and balances required to be president. So it is true. It would be true that Trump was the last president of the United States. The reality of that election is she being the last president of the United States. Now, I don't believe in the fantasy that they are concocting right now about how she's even competing with Trump.
No.
Like, there's no way. There's no way that she is even competing with Trump.
No, you have a bunch of paid influencers saying some things, and then you have the social media companies amplifying it.
Yeah, you have.
Meanwhile, if you look at if you look at our numbers, if you look at Bear's numbers, anybody saying, like, my entire YouTube feed is completely fucked up, even just watching videos right now.
Did you see the picture of Vance's family?
No. Doesn't he have a black wife and a...
No. His extended family, his mom and all of his siblings in the fucking Trump t-shirts.
I didn't see it.
Look, there's no way in shape or form that she has the votes necessary to even be the Democratic Party nominee.
She's not the nominee.
She doesn't have the vote. She never did have the votes for everything, right? The establishment is backing her because the establishment is scared of losing control. So the question is, do they let Trump be president? Do they let Trump be president? What level of treason is the current Democratic Party willing to go to in order to stay in power? There are Democratic senators who have already talked about invoking
25 or something.
Some fucking amendment. I don't know which amendment. I have to rewatch it, but invoking an amendment to where they don't let Trump become president if he's elected. And they're already talking about, yes, we all have to have fucking bodyguards and
I heard it. It was
martial law.
A congressman saying it. And that he actually said that a year or so ago. So he was saying that tape or that video came out.
What level of treason would we go to?
Well, there's a lot of speculation they're going to put him in jail before the election even happens. They're already changing and doing a bunch of shit at Rikers that makes no sense other than they're going to try to fucking house him there.
What's the catalyst?
And you have that. There's also another congressman.
But that's the other thing too.
There's also another congressman saying that they want to pass a bill to pull Secret Service detail once a president has become found guilty.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. First off, because the crimes that they are attempting to charge him with aren't real anyway. So
that same judge just fucking retried, just bringing them all back up.
Well, the reason why they're doing that is not. I would say maybe they want to put him in jail, but again, this is how stupid Democrats are. This is how stupid Democrats are. Putting Donald Trump in jail right now, if they arrested him and were like, we're putting you in jail, that's like giving him the last Infinity Stone. Like he will be so fucking more powerful if you put him in jail because again, you're the ones that keep poking the bear because you don't have any fucking policies. You don't have anything to beat him with. So you keep doing this.
Well, you put them in Rikers and then they have a gas leak.
The reality is, again, would only make him more powerful. The reality is, the reason why they're doing this, the real reason why this judge, who's a friend of the prosecutor, that alone is going to get this thrown out of court later, guys.
Have you seen pictures of this judge?
No, I don't. It's New York City. Who cares?
Yeah.
There's no real law. There's no real law or justice in New York City.
Looks like a fucking.
It's like Bartertown over there.
Pedophile, just fucking all disheveled and shit.
So, but the real reason why is by him redoing the charges, same exact charges, he didn't change anything that got it thrown out of court in the first place. The real reason is because they can keep him in court for the next until the election. That's the real reason. The real reason is being able to pull him off the campaign trail. So he's got to be at this.
Did you see him?
I really, honestly, at this point.
Did you see him on Sean Ryan's show?
No.
Did you see him? Sean Ryan also had Kash. You know who Kash Patel is? He was on Trump's cabinet, and he had some very interesting things to say as well. He was also on Lex Friedman's show. Trump was on Lex Friedman. Like, Trump's been out there doing all the podcasts. And I think Lex Friedman said, so you said some kind of hateful things about my friend Joe Rogan. And he said, I don't really know the guy. I've shook his hand. I meet him, at UFC when I say hi to Dana, but I don't know him. And he's like, would you go on Rogan's show? And he goes, yeah, I'd probably go on Rogan's show, but Rogan didn't invite me. Rogan's whole thing is Rogan only does his shit from his place, and Trump hasn't, came to his place. He's like, I'm not going to ask. And Trump said, I'm not going to ask to be on his show. He goes, are you negotiating right now? It's worth listening to, man. Anybody who hasn't heard it, it's worth listening to Trump on Lex Friedman. Man, he's been doing the rounds. Trump has been out there on not mainstream because mainstream media is dead.
Yeah,
it is it's alternative media.
Yeah. Did you hear? Did you see all the fucking stuff about the Arlington, about all the media talking about?
Fuck yeah! You know who was there?
Campaign trail.
Not only that, the families, 14 of the families came out and said, we invited Trump to be there. Yeah. We don't want Kamala Harris here. Not only did she not show up, none of them fucking showed up ever. They're like, they weren't even there to receive the bodies. And the one time Biden did show up, he's looking at his watch.
Yeah, fuck that guy. I mean, the reality is, And then
they're trying to go after Trump, saying that one of his people shoved somebody because it's a crime to video there. Meanwhile, Biden fucking videoed there already. They already did the same shit.
He did a campaign speech at Arlington.
And nobody's saying who this person is, or there's no video of her being shot like she's been assaulted.
It's just they've got nothing. I mean, the reality is mainstream media. You're completely right. Mainstream media is dead, but the problem is there's still a fucking shit ton of drones out there that are just fucking watching that shit and going, "Oh my god, I can't believe it." Even though,
well, they're low information voters. I mean, it's the same. It's the same reason you still see old folks, most of them black people, still wearing masks out in public.
Instead of the real question, like instead of being mad that Trump was at Arlington, the real question should have been, why wasn't the president? Why wasn't the president of the United States at Arlington laying the wreath? Why wasn't the president? That's the real question people ask. Because here's the thing: those people, those Marines and sailors, and I believe a soldier that were killed there, they were killed at the behest of the president of the United States, the current president of the United States.
And Kamala Harris brags that she was the last one that left the Situation Room, the briefing.
A real president would have been there. And a real president, not only would he have been there, but a real president would have been there and allowed those families to vent all their frustration and angst at him. Because that is the job of the commander-in-chief. He made the decision to pull out of fucking Afghanistan. He didn't have a proper plan. None of them did. They fucked it up. The commander-in-chief, that's where the buck stops. He should have wanted that. He should have been there, and he should have took whatever fucking hate those families had, because that's the point of being a commander-in-chief. If you can't take the bad, then you don't deserve any of the good.
One of the Marines that was there, that was injured from an IED. I believe he's missing an arm, maybe a leg. Did you see his interview? He was on Sean Ryan. Ryan had some fucking crazy shit to say. He's like, we had guns on this dude. They wouldn't let us engage. They said let him up through the line, and he was the dude that had the fucking explosives.
Yeah.
And they knew up to 2 hours. 2 hours they had target on this guy, and they wouldn't fucking clear him to fucking shoot him or even engage them. He's like, we could have prevented all of this. Well, at least this.
The reality is proper coordinate, proper command and control would have mitigated what happened. They could have mitigated what happened at that gate, and they didn't, because and I have somebody that I hold in the highest regards was there. Like, I hold him in the highest regards. Like, I don't think he could do no wrong. But that was a fucking command failure. At the fucking very most, only 2 Marines should have been in fucking harm's way. That's it. At the fucking most. But they did not mitigate that. They let that fucking shit show happen, and that's a fucking command failure. 100%. There's no goddamn way you're going to fucking tell me that was not a command failure to have that many Marines killed. It happens. We've had it happen before. But every single time, the buck stops at the commander, because they did not do the necessary things to protect those Marines in accomplishing that mission. Fuck those guys. I mean, the Secretary of Defense should have been fired. All those people should have been fired for that fiasco. When you have goddamn host nation on the airfield crawling into the fucking landing gear of fucking aircraft.
They've removed all that footage. They've removed all that footage of those people falling off those airplanes.
So 100% failure.
So you have 94 days until the election right now.
We're going to do a countdown?
I just heard it the other day. I heard it last night, so that's why it's in my head. What do you think is going to happen?
Trump's going to win the election. And they're not going to let him take the seat. They're not going to let him sit in the White House.
Did you see Tim Pool?
I mean, Trump already won the election. They're just not going to let him in the White House.
Tim Pool had somebody on, and Tim Pool was saying some stuff, and she said some things. And the Kamala Harris campaign came out and said that Tim Pool called for genocide and, doxed him, put all his personal information out.
Of course.
So now
That's all the Democrats have.
So he's filed a full lawsuit. He's got a law firm, and they're filing a lawsuit against Kamala Harris and the campaign and all this shit. Who knows where it'll go? But he's making a very big deal about it, as though it's something that's going to happen. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. He wasn't on Monday night at all. Like, you couldn't even find him. I thought maybe they'd pulled his channel or something had happened. And then he did a live last night.
The question will be the question will always.
And when will it actually?
The question will. It doesn't matter when it happens. The question will be: will the law firm follow through?
Correct. Yeah.
Will the law firm
look how many lawyers left Trump?
Will the law firm follow through with?
Yeah. Did you see they re-arrested Andrew and Tristan Tate?
No.
Yep. They've pulled over 60 of his vehicles. They've seized millions of dollars up at this point now. That lawyer was on the Tim Pool show last week, I think. I'm
surprised because he's been quiet as fuck.
They're out of custody. No, he's not quiet as fuck.
I haven't heard anything from him.
Yeah, he's saying a lot of Palestine is genocide, and
that's.
There you go.
That's it. That's it. I mean, you can't speak truth to truth. You can't do that. Not when it comes to that part of the world. I mean, the reality is, nobody wants the Palestinians. No Arab country wants to take in
right. The other side doesn't want them
because they are the rebel rousers of that part of the world, and the Israelis are not. They're not. The reality is they're not following any of the rules of warfare over there.
See all the rape stuff going on?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, whatever.
There's a ton of it because of who they are and their enemies, that they're allowed to rape the females or something. Like it's being said from both sides.
Yeah,
but there's some pretty seemingly reliable people saying it.
I don't believe any when we start the he said, she said, and all that bullshit. I don't believe it. Especially, I just look at it from a.
Do you think when they capture Muslim prisoners, they feed them pork?
Well, I don't know. I don't know because it's not really even in the Jewish communities, they're not frying up a lot of pork. I'm
curious,
I don't know. I mean, I think that, but here's the reality. The reality is that's a misnomer.
Yeah, you can eat anything that you have to survive.
Yeah, they can eat. They can eat pork. It's just they're not. It's one of those things. They can eat pork, and the reality is, if you understand what they were trying to convey with pork. What they were trying to convey with pork was you need to cook that shit. That's what the whole point of it was you need to cook that shit so you don't get worms, bitch. That was the ultimate point of that, not that.
I think in the next decade, it's out there. It's just not rampant. There's a ton of shit out there showing that it's correct, that a lot of people's ailments are actually parasite load. And a lot of it comes from the food that they eat, being pork.
Get you some ivermectin.
Yep. Well, there's other things too, but all right, guys. That's
it. All right, that's it.
Well, I gotta pee. That's the Pulling the Thread podcast, and we got to go do Patreon. We're gonna do this exact same thing over on Patreon, except the Patreon video is made off the questions that the Patreon members ask, and we build almost an equally long video off of that. So make sure you check out the SOE Tactical Gear Patreon. Jeff has Dog Kennel and Little Spoon YouTube subscription and Patreon channel also. That has been on hold for the last couple of weeks, but it will be ramping back up. Click it.
Don't forget, 1 gets 2.
We'll see you guys next week.